Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the AI Community Cast, sponsored by Neo4j. I am here with Cedric Kurn from Red Hat. Thank you so much for spending time with us. So why don't you tell everyone a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first off, thank you for having me here. It's been a fantastic time at AI DevConf. You guys have had a great booth presence, so it's been exciting to talk to you guys because we have some OpenShift for Red Hat integrations with Neo4j. Myself, I'm a developer advocate at Red Hat. I just got a senior promotion, so I couldn't be happier right now. Essentially, my background is in Kubernetes and OpenShift, but also the container tooling. Have you used Podman before as a container engine?
I come from the data science side, so I'm the algorithm gal.
Okay. We got both sides here in the interview.
Exactly. Okay. The dev and the AI coming together.
Partnership.
There we go.
But
it's the world order.
Exactly. It's been an amazing past few years. I started off as an intern at Red Hat.
Yeah.
This was all during COVID, so essentially, they shipped us the laptop. They're like, okay.
That must have been so interesting. I've been talking to a lot of younger folks lately who were either in college or in high school, when that happened, and it's just so interesting. So, I mean, this is not what we were supposed to be talking about, but I'm really curious about this process for you, and how is it to become a professional in the time of COVID?
It was really interesting because it was kind of here's a laptop, welcome to the corporate life.
Yeah.
And I was a little bit stunned at first, but then I kind of got into the groove of things. And unfortunately, this job at Red Hat was a developer advocate. So it was very, here's what you can talk about. Here are the open source projects that we want you to help with for demos and workshops. And go at it.
Yeah.
So it was they just let me loose. And so it was a very interesting time doing Zoom and everything. But finally, things came back to normal. I work out of the New York City office with a lot of the IBMers over there. But it was an interesting transition because, it was going from Zoom calls then into the corporate, office workplace culture.
Right. What was the biggest shift for you? Was there something really surprising about being in the office?
I guess the water cooler conversations.
Yeah.
You don't really have those.
No.
On Slack.
Yeah.
People are more like, what do you need from me? Transactional.
Right.
When you're in the workplace, it's really good conversations, just like these conferences where you just come up to somebody and you introduce yourself, and then you learn about the other person and connect. And I love that. That's what's really nice about coming back for stuff like this. Yeah.
So tell me, obviously we're in DevRel, so we get to build cool, fun demos.
Yeah.
Is there something recently that you've built that was particularly fun or interesting for you?
Of course.
Let's talk about it.
Yeah, let's
Cedric.
talk about it. And actually, you would be interested in this as a data scientist. So let's talk about training models, right?
Let's
talk about it. So I was at the conference yesterday. People had really good talks, and so I was like, I need to redo my entire demo. So last night, I spent probably 5 hours and redid everything that I was going to talk about. And so what I'm actually presenting at my talk today is the ability for, say, someone who doesn't have a data science background to be able to fine-tune a model. And specifically one of these LLMs like MixTroll or any other open source ones that you could find on Hugging Face. And the issue in the past is that you need GPU usage, you need expertise with data science tools and libraries, and if you're not in that field, it's very daunting. I feel like it's a large learning curve.
Yeah.
And so one of the recent projects and kind of research studies that we've done with IBM is this InstructLab process where you can take a model such as MixTroll and teach it new skills and knowledge, and essentially generate synthetic training data to integrate back into this model and export it in the span of an hour. So this is huge, essentially, to create a new version or fork of an LLM that you can contribute to make open source AI, a possibility. Because right now it's kind of this black box of we have, one of these models released, Llama, and everyone makes a fork of it, and it's hard to contribute back upstream.
Right.
And so this is a project that just came out, probably a few months ago.
Yeah.
That I'm showing off today in the session for people to be able to contribute to these models and fine tune on their own machine, maybe without even GPU usage.
That's phenomenal.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that, I mean, for me, having been a data scientist before the era of like widespread AI accessibility, is it was always just us math nerds in a corner somewhere, like building algorithms and checking F1 scores and, you know, all of this. And so being able to take that and make that available and accessible to people, I think is so fascinating and so interesting. So my question to you, it's like, as someone who comes from data science, the relationship between devs and data scientists has really changed. So as you're someone who comes from the developer side and you're building these models, do you have a relationship with data scientists to talk about this AI, or what is that like for you?
Yeah, I have a kind of unique relationship with one of the data scientists on our team.
Yeah.
Mainly it's me asking him why my Jupyter Lab environment is broken and why Xformers is not working.
Yeah, exactly.
All these errors that I as a developer have no idea about, but you probably experience it.
Yes, we know.
Way more often.
Exactly.
And so it's a Slack back and forth every day. But I also wonder, because it's interesting, developers are spending more time than we used to working with data science projects, with notebooks, with Python. And is it the same way for a data scientist? Are you doing more development work, or has it stayed the same?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's the thing that's really interesting, is that I'm much more tied to like actually building and developing things. So, you know, historically I would have a Jupyter notebook and it was just running algorithms and showing the outputs. But now it's about how do we actually connect it to the application, and how do we put the front end on it, and how do we give some interaction to it. So there's definitely a lot more of the software development for data scientists, and certainly more AI for the developers. So it's just been a really interesting evolution for me to sort of watch how those roles have evolved over the last year and a half.
Right. I wonder if there's going to be a new type of persona. Obviously, we have a lot of new personas coming out, like the platform engineer recently. I wonder if there's going to be some intermediary person who is the interpreter, the middleman. A little bit. I mean,
my talk that I gave yesterday was actually the data science on top of the Gen AI app that we built. So we had built a chatbot based on all of our documentation and all of our community interactions, so people could ask questions and get better answers about how to solve their Neo4j problem that they're having. And so what then I did is I said, okay, let's look at the data science that you can do on top of that can actually help the health of the LLM and help the health of the chatbot itself. So looking at, we've got a RAG-based system, so understanding the data science on top of the context documents, or understanding the data scientist of conversation pathways. And so I think what's possible now is we've had like this first evolution of, the AI technicians and data scientists and the developers are working more together. But now there's this next layer of, okay, what can we understand about the way these things are being used, and what can we bring back to developers? So my whole talk yesterday was about how can we use data science to improve your RAG data set so that you get better outputs. And so it's still evolving, right? Everybody's jobs are changing and the whole conversation is changing. But I think just that interaction between our two personas has just been super interesting for me.
It's been great. I think that these, they're different roles, but we're working on the same goal, right?
Exactly.
And I speaking of your presentation, I really enjoyed it because you actually had such real world examples of the docs that you guys have on your site.
Yep.
And I didn't understand some of the
data science part,
the graphic, the data science part.
Like, what are you talking about?
But I could understand the clusters, right? Of how information was related, and I think that more perspective in both of our roles for each other is always going to be a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things I really appreciate about graphs in general is with the soft eye, when you look at it, there's so much information to be gleaned from just the structure of the network itself.
Right.
And so again, we talked about this yesterday, but like that soft eye approach and really understanding what does interconnectedness mean, because we can look at a bunch of numbers of similarity scores and modularity scores, but what does it mean, right? So even for me, I taught data science for a long time, and it was always about getting students to understand the topography of their data. Like the reason we do exploratory data analysis is what's even in here. right? We as humans have a very hard time understanding a very long column of numbers. But if you give it a picture, we can have that understanding.
Right.
And so it's just really interesting to really bring that in with the graph, and then also say, now that we look at the interconnectedness of the context documents, it's a new way for the developer to see, oh, how are things getting hit? What is actually happening? So that we can continue to bring more of that network science approach to the developers, and you can also bring us like, okay, but this is how you actually put it into practice, make it more applied.
Right.
So yeah.
And it's all about this accessibility. I think at the end of the day, I mean, I guess you understand as a teaching background.
Yeah.
And Red Hat, we're all about open source as well. So making sure that everyone has access to the tools and technologies and innovation that we have now.
Yeah.
And I took a data science course back in college.
Good to know.
And it was in R, but a lot of people.
There's nothing wrong with R.
There's nothing wrong with
really
R.
Okay.
That's what people say. I wish, I think. What's cool is a lot of people on my team actually are adjunct professors at colleges, and I think the more education that we have around this whole area, right, around cloud native and AI and how we can bring this to students and put this out there is always going to be a better thing too. Yeah, I still feel very connected to my school roots.
Where did you go to school?
North Carolina State University.
Oh, right.
Yeah,
good.
Yeah. And it was a great program. I learned a lot, but a lot of the things that I do now are not really connected to what I did in college.
Sure.
Right. I was working with, I think, Spring Boot version 1.
Yep.
Or something like that.
Version 1.
The Angular, but not the new Angular. The The OG.
Yeah, OG Angular.
OG Angular. So all these technologies that now in my day-to-day job I don't use anymore, but I had to pick up on internships and out there on the internet, especially YouTube. So I'm glad that this interview is going to be out there as well.
It will definitely be out there. I mean, and that's the thing, is the technology is always changing, right? So as developers or data scientists or anybody in tech, it's more about, when we're teaching folks, it's more about teaching them how to solve their own problems. Right? How do you, when you hit the bug or you hit the issue, how do you solve it? How do you solve it quickly? How do you validate where that information is coming from? And obviously, the GPTs and the LLMs are changing that significantly, so that's also super exciting. But the technology is always changing, right? I mean, I know the world that I live in and the world that my children are going to live in 20 years from now, very, very different. So speaking of that, one of the questions I like to ask folks is, when you look to the future and you think about different innovations or inventions or progress that is coming, is there a particular area or thought of something that you're most either interested in or curious about or really hope gets solved soon? What's sort of where is your curiosity in the future?
I mean, what's been really interesting on the consumer side is all these kind of AI-enabled devices.
Yep.
I think there was the Rabbit thing that came out recently, where it's essentially a one-stop shop, right? You tell it in natural language what you want. Order me an Uber. Can I get DoorDash? Whatever the command might be, and it then invokes the APIs of whatever service. And that one specifically wasn't the greatest launch, but I think in the future there's going to be so many adaptations of this same type of process of essentially natural language into something like Siri, and then it goes off and does the task for you, so that you don't have to. Essentially, apps will be used less and less.
Yeah, they go from front end to being under the hood.
Exactly, and it's weird because we've kind of done a full circle of that, right? First, just API usage for applications, then you build a front end. Now we're going back
to the API.
Back to the API. So it's a circle of life.
Front end need not apply.
Exactly. So I think that's going to be super interesting to see how that pans out. Of course, we're at an AI conference, so seeing some of these sessions has been really interesting. There was an NLP session yesterday with Python, and that was really cool to see, the text-to-speech that some of these companies are working on. It's getting really good. And I'm excited because it's just exponential progress from now to what we're going to have in 5, 10, 20 years. Yeah,
we had someone from, it might have been the one you saw, Anand Raghunathan from Unscramble was talking about text-to-SQL and, how do you actually use natural language to hit the structured data.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So super interesting stuff.
That's actually what I was going to do in my demo is there's this training set right now on Hugging Face of the example text to query for SQL commands. And you can essentially train that on your local machine using the Red Hat technology I talked about, InstructLab or MLX by Apple, or all of these really new technologies to locally train a model to specify it to your data set. And I think it's really cool, right?
That's
because
wonderful.
We're going to avoid hallucinations. We're going to have more accurate data. And there's the biggest thing right now is trust, right?
Yes.
So we're going to have more trust in the end when we're training our models. So I'm excited.
I need to make sure that I hit your talk. I haven't been able to hit many this conference because I'm here having these fun conversations with folks like you.
Right, we're having a great time.
Anything else you want the audience to know? Anything you want to share?
I'd just like to say
Go
first,
UNC?
No,
you're not UNC. North Carolina
North Carolina. They got to know.
Sorry. Wait, what color is North Carolina?
Red.
Oh, you're the red. Okay,
Which school did you represent?
No, I'm a city girl. I went to NYU, and then I did my graduate at Northwestern.
NYU's great. I was just there, and all the people were graduating. It was
the purple
it was a sea of purple.
Still, yeah.
The Yankee Stadium, sea of purple.
Yep.
It was amazing.
Yep.
But I say call to action. I mean, check out Red Hat's developer program. Everything we do is open source. So if you're looking for cloud native and Kubernetes or AI, we have a lot of resources there. And lastly, thank you so much for having me. It's been a great conversation.
Oh, it's been wonderful. Cedric Clyburn, Red Hat.
Thanks.
Thank you all so much. You are the best. It was really fun.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
All right, take care. Oh my gosh, you're awesome at this. Of course you're in DevRel.
It was fun.
Of course you're in DevRel.
I'm a yapper.